Do you feel calm right now, but you feel anxious about the fact that you're not anxious? I get it. This video is for you. Often our mind creates this fear of fear, where we feel anxious and fearful about the fact that we're not anxious and fearful, right? And your mind wants you to stay in this trap. I'm going to explain to you how to get out of it, right? And so things are going well, right? You have these moments of calm, you have these moments of peace, you have these moments of where I could breathe. And then you notice the fact that you're not anxious, and you notice the fact that you're not stressful, and then you become stressful about the fact that you're not stressful, or the fact that you're not anxious, right? And it's a trap that the mind often has us fall into because it's a defense mechanism, right? It's getting us to prepare for when the next thing can go wrong, right? What's going to go wrong next, and when is it going to go wrong? And it robs you of the peace in that moment, right? And then the thing is, when you're not at peace in that moment, the less likely you are to handle the next situation appropriately. So I'm going to explain to you how you can step out of that trap with acceptance and the weather. So one of the things that you have to do is practice acceptance. Is that even if anxiety or stress returns soon, you have to be able to accept that it may or may not return, right? And the interesting is, the deeper level of acceptance that you have, and the more that you accept that anxiety might return, stress might return, my depression might return, right? The more that you accept that, the less likely it is that they're actually going to return. And something I found so interesting is when I was struggling with my anxiety and my OCD was that the more accepting of the fact that, you know what, I may be anxious later on tonight, I may be anxious later on in the week, I may be anxious later on in the month, whatever the case is, an event coming up, maybe it was something later on that day, is the more accepting of the fact, I'm like, you know what, whatever. At this point, if I feel anxiety, is that the less likely it actually happened, and or at least the less intense that I felt that. I always found that so interesting, is it was so ironic. It was that the more accepting I was of the fact that whether or not anxiety was going to return or stress was going to return, the less likely it is that it actually returned, and the less intense it was when it did. I found that so interesting. I was like, you know what, I'm going to enjoy this moment regardless of whether or not it returns. And it gets me to think about how one day at the beach helped change my life and change my perspective on anxiety. I'm going to tell you about it. And so I was at the beach with my family one week, and I remember, if you know anything about being at the beach, whatever beach you're at, California beach, Jersey beach, you know that the weather on the beach changes in an instant. You can have a morning where it's pouring rain, and then the sun comes out, and then it pours rain again, and then it snows, right? You know, understand, it could just, the weather changes on a dime, especially when you're that close to the ocean, and the winds are constantly shifting. So we woke up one morning, and I remember we woke up to the sound of rain scattered all on the roof, right? And it was one of those big raindrops, right? It wasn't those small ones. You could really hear it. So, you know, it was calm. We heard the rain pattering on the roof. You know, you can hear the chatter of people downstairs, you know, probably gathered around the couch or the kitchen table, because nobody was out walking early on the beach. You know, the smell of coffee, somebody was cooking eggs. You can hear the eggs frying in the pan. And you know, we're coming downstairs, we look out the window, and it's, you know, pouring. There's streams going into the storm drains, right? And so we're all gathered around the kitchen table, and we're trying to decide, well, what are we going to do for the rest of the day, right? It's good. It's pouring out right now. We checked the forecast, and the forecast pretty much said it was going to be raining all day until 6 or 7 o'clock. So we figured pretty much that a beach day is out of the question, right? So we're all just kind of gathering around, you know, drinking coffee. And then we check, as I said, we checked the forecast again, and same thing, said it was supposed to rain all day. But then around noon, something interesting happened. We were watching something on TV, and a beam of sunlight finds its way into our living room, right? The house that we were staying at. And thought that was interesting, and a couple of us got up and peered out the window, and we saw that the entire street was illuminated with sunlight. And we thought, well, it was supposed to rain all day, right? But there was this small pocket in between the clouds that the sun was able to peek through. And we're all looking at each other, we're like, well, let's take advantage of this. And everybody's scrambling, we're running upstairs, grabbing our towels, trying to get the surfboards, or getting our flip-flops ready, right? And grabbing the suntan lotion, the beach chairs, and we scrambled on and ran down the street to the beach. And we all got to the beach and immediately went into the ocean, immediately started surfing. And my family, they set up their chairs to try to get some sunbathing in. And, we're all out in the beach. I remember, jumping into the water, and being at the beach is great. You can feel the salt water on your skin and the sun in your eyes, and hear the crashing of the waves. And it was something so interesting because we never thought we would be experiencing that today because the rain said forecast. And so everyone's, again, enjoying the sun. We're in the ocean. And something that was so interesting was that we were able to enjoy over 2 hours on the beach in the sun, despite the forecast saying it was supposed to rain all day. And what I found interesting was not only that we had this over 2 hours of moments in the sun, but the fact that I wasn't worried about when it was going to rain again. You understand? I wasn't thinking about when the rain was going to return. I wasn't thinking about when the storm was going to return, right? I was just enjoying this moment of peace and this moment of sun in between the clouds, in between the storms. I genuinely was living in that moment. I really wasn't. I just wanted to catch as many waves as I could, stay as long as I could in the ocean. And I wasn't thinking about the fact that it was pouring this morning. I wasn't thinking about the fact that it may pour again in an hour. I was just enjoying my time on the beach. Regardless of whether it was going to last 2 hours or 2 minutes, we wanted to make the most out of it, right? And so that's one thing I want to try to get you to understand, is that anxiety works in the same way. Instead of worrying about whether or not anxiety or stress or depression is going to return, just enjoy that moment in the sun that you have right here and right now, and accept the fact that it might rain again in an hour, it might rain again in 2 hours, it might rain again next week, but right here, right now, it's not raining. And that's something, right? That's a pocket of sunshine, this piece of peace that you can still enjoy, right? Because you can look back at the end of the day and be like, yeah, you know what? It rained for, 80% of the day, but for 20% of the day, it didn't. And that's better than nothing. So that's something you have to understand, is that even if you're anxious for most of the morning and most of the night, that even if you have this 2-3 hour pocket where you're not, enjoy that moment in between the clouds, and not being so worried about whether or not it's going to rain again. Then I started to apply that in my life. I started to accept that it may rain later on today, it may rain later on at the end of the week, but right here, right now, it's not. And that's something. Yeah, really understanding that, it really changes your perception. It changes your relationship to anxiety. It changes your relationship to stress. And as I said, ironically, when you change your relationship to it, the least likely it is to happen in the future, because you don't get so caught up on what's going to happen or what's not going to happen, and you're more enjoying what's happening right here and right now. Life doesn't always give us answers, but it gives us these moments. It gives us stories like this, these opportunities that we can use to create lighthouses and virtues that we can use later on down in life, right? That's what this channel is all about. So I hope this story helps somebody else today, and you change your relationship to anxiety, kid. All right, change your relationship to stress. All right, it's not about foregoing it completely. Change your relationship to it, right? I'll talk to you later, kid. Speaking of changing my relationship with things, man, I thought, Mike, you know what? I'll do a video outside today. It's a beautiful day. You can see the sun out here. Back over in the forest, I can kind of hear the birds, but it's like 22 degrees. I'm freaking freezing. I can't feel my fingers because this is like the 4th time that I've recorded this video, and so it's getting hard to even press the buttons. But talking about enjoying the moments in the sun, it's sunny, but it's cold.